Dorsey is an adjunct senior fellow at the Rajaratnam School of International Studies. A pleasure to have you on, James. Tell us about the reality rather than the rhetoric we're hearing. Can Israel really afford to fight effectively on multiple fronts? Can Hezbollah afford to go to war with Israel? Can Tehran afford the same?
Well, the proof will be in the pudding whether the Israeli military is up to a multi-front attack, particularly given the fact that it is fighting the longest war in its history, 10 months in Gaza. I think the problem is, and your correspondent in Tehran rightly pointed out, that the Iranians are in a bind. They need to find a way to attack Israel forcefully, but nonetheless calibrate it so it does not provoke an Israeli response that would then spin out into an all-out war in the Middle East. And the same is true for Hezbollah. Now, it may very well be that the notion of a multi-front attack, with other words, Iran, as well as its non-state allies in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Yemen, that may be one way of calibrating it. With other words, the emphasis being on the multi-front rather than on the forcefulness of the attack. It's everybody's guess at this moment. We'll have to wait and see.
I'm not sure if it's even possible to understand where the burden of responsibility is greater in terms of who needs to control their reactions more to try to make sure there is no wider conflict. But James, this is from an NGO, and it says that Israel has conducted 17,000 attacks. They're either air or drone strikes, destruction of infrastructure, or remote explosions, 17,000 occasions in 5 different countries since October. Who is controlling the Israelis?
The Israelis, nobody's controlling the Israelis. That's obvious, and the Israelis have been willing to defy international public opinion. They've been willing to defy the Americans, who have been pressuring the Israelis, even though they haven't attached something that would sanctions that would reinforce their pressure. Now, who is to blame and who has responsibility in avoiding this from spinning out of control? I think that all sides do. With other words, as much as your correspondent noted that the Israelis must have known in advance that there would be a response to the killing of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, the Iranians equally know more or less what the red line's going to be in terms of provoking a more forceful Israeli response to that. And by the same token, the Israelis know what the red lines are in their response to whatever attack by whoever occurs in the next hours, days, whatever it may be.
A few months ago, a senior Israeli official said the fighting in Gaza could last for the entirety of 2024. Do you think at that stage Benjamin Netanyahu already had it in mind that November will be decisive for his prospects of pursuing this conflict in Gaza? Of course, November, and I mean Donald Trump.
It's very well possible. I mean, first of all, Netanyahu is a far-right politician. So his inclinations and empathies are with other far-right politicians, including Donald Trump. He also reckons, although that's a risky move, that a Trump administration will be more amenable to Israeli actions than, at least in terms of what they voice and vocal pressure that they apply, than a Trump administration will be. But we'll have to see, because Trump certainly does not want to get drawn into a war. And we've seen strains between Netanyahu and Trump in the past.
James Dorsey, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Adnan. Thank you for having me.